I think one of the most famous architectural experiments of the 1960s could have an impact on how you design your home if you let it. So I'm in freaking Sea Ranch right now. So for those who don't know, Sea Ranch is a development on the Northern California coast. If you love nature and you love architecture, you're gonna be interested in this place. In this video, I'm going to explain a little bit about the history because it's just too cool not to share, and then get into practical design applications, like what we could take from this if we don't live in a 1960s modernist multi-million-dollar home. This is kind of a funny little chair. So I'm staying at this Airbnb right now. All the walls are cedar, so it smells like you're in a sauna. The people who own this home have taken so much care to decorate it thoughtfully, and there's beautiful ceramic pieces everywhere. Lots of cool books. It's not like one of those Airbnbs where they're hiding all their cool stuff from you. Like, it wasn't meant to be an Airbnb, it was meant to be a home, I think. I really want to show you around the cool little corners of this Airbnb and also just talk about what makes the Sea Ranch special and its history, because it's really this like magical place. I actually have a bit of a personal connection here. I used to come here a little bit as a kid. So my parents and their friends would rent a house for a weekend, bring all the kids. I'm there in the front, I'm the little chunk at 5 months old. I look like a little demon child. My dad would dive for abalone and we would eat it after. I remember going on walks and I remember being really cold. And that's pretty much it. So I haven't been back yet. So it feels cool to be back, especially after doing a lot of research. All right, so what the heck even is Sea Ranch? It's a development from the early 60s on the California coast. It's like, oh, it's January, people. This is so nice. It's remote, it's windy as heck, normally, not right now, and it's honestly kind of intense and rugged. And it happens to be this case study in modernist architecture. So all of the buildings have this really distinctive visual language, which you can see right now, which is they're clad in redwood that is not treated, so it's allowed to go gray over time with the sea air. The buildings are really angular and have a lot of simple geometry, like squares, triangles, circles. And the insides of these homes are impeccably decorated. You just can tell they're owned by people who love architecture and design. So you get this mix of this really rugged landscape and this sort of design haven. Sea Ranch now basically functions as a vacation place, a place where people go and spend the weekend. But that wasn't actually the original intention of Sea Ranch. All right, yes, I'm in the shower because it's really pretty, because it's cool. It's just another cool room in the house. So the origins of this place. In 1963, there's this guy, Al Boak, and he worked for this company called Oceanic Properties. He has an architectural background, but he's definitely like a businessman, developer, deal maker type, and he's really pushing this project forward. So he comes here and he's just like, this is amazing. I'm gonna convince everybody to make this happen, essentially. So instead of just like chopping this up into suburban lots, he brought in renowned landscape architect, Lawrence Halprin. He wrote a book that I read. It's really cool. He just seems like a great guy. He's like kind of hippie, deep appreciation for NorCal, deep appreciation for the Sierras and the coast and living with the land. Like, seems like a really cool guy. Rest in peace. And so he quite literally camped on this land with his family in the early 60s and did wind studies and just wrote up all his ideas about what this development could be. He thinks of like places like Tuscany and Japan and the Swiss Alps, where you have this stunning view, and then you have these buildings that are all built pretty similarly, like the same materials, and they're kind of clustered together in such a way that it actually makes the view and the landscape better, which is kind of a hard thing to achieve, like adding buildings and making nature more beautiful. Like, is that even possible? And so that was part of the vision, was, okay, can we create like clusters of homes built out of the same materials that can actually enhance the landscape instead of making it worse? instead of visually competing with it. That's what my notes say. So he was hoping to find a style building that could be synonymous and clustered together. For the building style, he took inspiration from the buildings that already existed here on the coast. So one being, this was called Rancho Del Mar. It's like an old ranch that was here for like 100 years before Sea Ranch was built. There's lots of old barns. Some of them are really run down and weathered from the sea air. So a major point of inspiration was the barns. He also took inspiration from the Pomo people, who are the native people of this land. Took inspiration from their buildings and how they lived with the land. And additionally, Fort Ross. So Fort Ross is a fort just south of here that's a Russian fort. But yeah, the Russians were here in Northern California in the 1800s, and the Russian River that is in Sonoma County, which is where we are now, is named after the Russians, not like the fact that it's like Russian down the river. Anyways, he's got these inspo. He's got his little mood board, you know, of his inspiration. And he writes these guiding principles for the future houses that will be developed at Sea Ranch. And when I think of a development, I think of developers coming in and building like all the houses at once. But that is not really how this worked. They built a few demonstration houses and outlined all these guiding principles that would guide the demonstration houses and future houses to be built here. Lots were sold for people to go with their own architects and build out new homes aligned with the principles of Sea Ranch. Got it? Okay. Sea Ranch, The Diary of an Idea. This is by Lawrence Halprin. So we're getting it from the frickin' source. We've got a hot or not list. Or not a hot or not. We've got an ins and outs list. In, nature predominates as a matrix for the community. Oh, and then we get a little shade. Little shade is thrown at Carmel and Bodega. Nature is backyard sized. What is in? Rural quality community. Out, suburban quality individual houses not being related to each other. Aesthetics, major concern for art, architecture, graphics, and the environment. So not only did they take a lot of concern with the way the architecture was outlined, also the like graphic design of Sea Ranch is also very iconic. In design control, we love a controlling baddie. He's like, if we make it nice, it will be cool. In diversity of people, incomes, professions, and interests. It's really interesting that he explicitly states that. And another one, in non-elitist, out elitist. Cool. Modest sized houses. So a lot of these first houses that are built are actually kind of small compared to like the modern home. One of the guiding principles is to preserve access to the views. Being inspired by the hedgerows that go perpendicular to the coast and then the roads that go parallel to the coast, he designed the houses to exist in clusters along the hedgerows and along the back of the road, so in kind of like a T or U formation, so that everybody has access to the meadow and the views from their house, even if they're further set back. So on the no-go list is blocks views by Malibu type walls of houses. If you do it this way, everyone gets a view and the houses are kind of clustered into the landscape. Very cool. In common facilities, trails, recreation areas, common lands. We all share the meadow. We all share these common community centers. Out, individual ownership and attitudes. You can feel the 60s in this, and I love it. It's so fun. So now we're getting into the fun part, which is like the demonstration projects. Al Boak hires Lawrence Halprin to design the plan and the principles. And then he ropes in two architectural firms. One is Joseph Eschrich, who is referred to as the Dean of Bay Area Architecture. So he's already extremely established. And then we have MLTW, which makes me think of Stanley Cooper Draper Price, which was kind of a bolder choice. This is a young firm of 4 architects who had studied together at Princeton, recently created this firm, and they had built a couple houses, but their larger projects hadn't even been built yet. So they were like a little bit of a riskier choice, but like a little like, ooh, kind of exciting. So for these demonstration projects, they wanted them to be in a few different locations. So MLTW would design something in the meadow that would kind of stand out from the land, and that would be condominium 1. And then Eschrich would design the hedgerow houses and also the store. And the store was like, kind of think of like a general store. And now it's a Sea Ranch Lodge, which is like a fancy hotel. So both groups embrace the principles, but in slightly different ways, including these shed style roofs, which are meant to like deflect the wind, and no overhangs, which would catch the wind and like flutter in a storm. It's really windy here. Like it's really important you know how windy it is. And then everybody's doing vertical redwood cladding. MLTW designs condominium 1. I watched this YouTube video about Sea Ranch, and these guys were saying, well, condos weren't really a thing at the time. This was like the first condo. And I was like, what do you mean condos weren't a thing at the time? Like, haven't condos been a thing since the dawn of time? I looked into it, and at least in the United States and in California, condos actually weren't a thing until the early 60s, not like in a legal sense. There had been new housing laws meant to help people get into home ownership. And so condos had been officially like legislated. And so this kind of was one of like the first condo developments in California at that time. No two units in this condominium complex are the same. Like they each have a fun little feature. Like one has a little courtyard, and one has a balcony, and one has a vestibule, whatever that is. And they all are angled at such a way where they have like at least 2 different walls that view the ocean. And so this kind of gets into the vision for this space, which was more communal living, not super elitist. Like people could actually build a life out here and live in community with the land, which, spoiler alert, kind of didn't really happen. Like no other condominiums got built at Sea Ranch. They had plans to build 11 more, but at the end of the day, it just became like single family homes and vacation homes. Condominium 1 has won so many awards. I think it's one of the most exciting projects at Sea Ranch. Then things got complicated, as they so often do. So in the late 60s, early 70s, we've got local divers groups and coastal advocates pushing for coastal access, because they looked at California's coastline and they're like, wow, a lot of this is privately owned. Like access to the coast should be a right for all Californians, and we want to make sure we protect that right. Not to mention like the wildlife that actually lives on the coast. Basically, this prop passed with overwhelming support, which created the California Coastal Commission, which protected public access to the beach. At Sea Ranch, basically there was just so much back and forth. They were pushing for coastal access every mile, and there's 10 miles of coast. And the thing is, coastal access isn't even that big of a deal in terms of like, it's just a trail with a small parking lot. So like, that's actually not that hard to accommodate. But the Coastal Commission starts getting involved, and they're able to like veto development at Sea Ranch. And because, you know, not all the houses were built at once, they were going to be built slowly over time. We still only have about 300 homes built. There's this commission that's kind of like vetoing all these houses being built. It starts with them telling a guy he can't build on his lot because it would block the view of the ocean from Highway 1. Even though this place was kind of born out of like environmentalism and this utopia of living with the land, now we've got these environmental groups kind of pushing back and halting development and kind of changing the course of Sea Ranch. In the 80s, there's like a big vibe shift. So development begins again, but the vibes are off, you know, things have changed. They're not abiding as strictly by the core principles. Homes are becoming larger and more individualistic, and the population that's coming up here really is starting to be more of that like owner class. So the core of the southern part of Sea Ranch is more what was developed in the 60s, and it aligns more with like the core design principles. And then the 80s, you will see some lots that are developed in a way that is not in line with the original principles of everybody getting a view. So this place, this home specifically, is epic, and it's been fun to show you around. And you know, it makes me think, wow, I wish I owned something like this or lived somewhere like this. I do not. So what can I take from it? What could you take from it to apply to your home, even if this isn't particularly your style? A core principle of the modernist movement is honest materials. Noah Daniel, who's another YouTuber, has an incredible video about his design principles, and honest materiality is one, and he explains it really well, so you should watch that video. It's good for your brain to look at a material and have it actually be what it is trying to appear as. For example, this wood is real wood and it's unfinished and it's raw. And I think there's something about our animal brain that is really comforted by the fact that we are grounded in reality and that our eyes do not deceive us. Real clay tiles, real wood, real metals that are aged or not aged. Like I've been noticing chrome everywhere in this house, which is really beautiful and a nice complement to all these warm tones. Even in a house like this, which seems to have so much fancy furniture, my partner was pointing out that, the side tables are just plywood and constructed very nicely, but they're honest about what they are. They have a good design, and so they're really nice. So steer clear of fake stuff, It's really that simple. And I think your home will be a lot less unsettling. Another principle of this area is grouping instead of scattering. So grouping the houses into little clusters that live amongst the trees, instead of just scattering them evenly spaced on lots. It also applies to furniture. So in these large spaces, creating intentional zones and little groupings of furniture, and then letting the open space be open space. All right, so another principle is to share space generously. A lot of the homes aren't actually that large, but a lot of the space is devoted to communal space rather than private space. And the core principles of Sea Ranch also abide by that. They were meant to be these community hubs where people could come together. People were living, the idea was for people to live in condominiums close to each other, sharing walls, sharing everything, and arranging their homes in such a way where they get to share the common meadow that they can walk in and play in and just have that communal space. So optimizing for communal space and also designing a home where interacting with other people is effortless, like this massive table and this little cluster of chairs by the fireplace. They both create these really nice environments to share space. The dream of the 1960s commune isn't dead. If anyone wants to build a replica of Condominium 1 with me, let me know. Oh my gosh, don't fall down the stairs. So another guiding principle is to embrace restraint, meaning when decorating, add things, but just enough, and then stop and just let those pieces breathe. I think you could have done a lot more here with placing things on this counter or art on the wall, but just letting the room and the architecture speak for itself can be really nice. Another takeaway here is experimenting with the power of simplicity, specifically speaking in terms of simple geometries and simple colors. So we've already talked about how Sea Ranch is comprised of a lot of geometric shapes, triangles, squares, circles. And then I also noticed that this particular home has a lot of primary colors, reds, blues, yellows, all sort of like a muted version of those colors, but still pretty bold. And I think there's something there. I think it's interesting to play with simplicity and these foundational elements of color and of shape. One thing that I think Sea Ranch does really well is framing views intentionally. So one of the design principles was to place windows to optimize views and light rather than the look of the building from the exterior. And for example, I feel like these windows were placed here intentionally to frame this tree. Sometimes when decorating, there's this vibe like every wall needs to be covered, every little corner needs to be decorated with art. We need a gallery wall to cover the entire surface of the wall. And maybe that's not true. Maybe we can center a focal point for the eye to rest on and kind of control what someone looks at when they enter a room. So here, on this big blank wall of wood, your eye is immediately drawn to the tree because it is the focal point. All right, so that takes us to the end of the video here, and I appreciate you taking the time to learn about Sea Ranch with me. I'm not an expert on Sea Ranch, I'm just a girl with a library card. And if you want to learn more from real experts, I would recommend these 2 books. So we've got The Sea Ranch, which is a hefty one. One of the guys who wrote this is one of the 4 architects in the firm that built Condominium 1, Linden. So this has a really good overarching history and then gets into a deep dive on like a lot of specific buildings. It's just everything. And then this one, The Sea Ranch, Diary of an Idea. This is written by Lawrence Halprin himself, the landscape architect who wrote all of the plans and ideas. It has all of his original drawings and his perspective on like the vision for what Sea Ranch was meant to be. And a lot of these people who like were involved in the early project ended up living here for like the rest of their lives or having homes here. So it's really cool. It's really fun to learn about. If you like videos like this, let me know. Thanks.